reparations. So he was being offered hundreds of thousands of dollars, which would be the equivalent of millions today, to go and help white people get richer. He turned it all down and took the long train ride from Iowa to Tuskegee. Asked Booker T. Washington, where's my office? Where's my apartment? Where's my science lab? Where's my lecture hall? And Booker T said, when I got here, I had nothing. And unfortunately, I have to offer you the same thing that was offered to me. Nothing. He did not complain. He did not groan. He did not lose heart. Dr. George Washington Carver went to the trash dump of the students of Tuskegee. If you don't believe me, read Up From Slavery. He went to the trash and took out old metal, took out old plastic, took out scraps of wood, scraps of tin, aluminum, took out anything he could from the garbage of college students. And you know what kind of stuff is in garbage. But he dug through that garbage, and from garbage created his first science lab. And from that garbage, the waste of other human beings, from matter that nobody wanted to be bothered with, he gave you more than 300 products from the sweet potato, more than 200 from the soybean, over 500 from the peanut. From garbage, he gave you all that. And you look at us as Africans in America, grossing over $1 trillion in spending power, with nothing but resources. We produce nothing but excuses. Booker T and Dr. Carver had nothing and produced miracles.
Amen.
The difference between them yesterday and us today, although they had nothing and financially you have a lot, the one thing they had that you don't have is faith in their ability to effect their circumstances. It is that belief in the great I am power that led Africans out of slavery. It was their belief in that great I am power that led them to the Garvey movement. It was their belief in the I am power that built the Nation of Islam and the Moorish Science temples. It was that belief that fueled the Civil Rights Movement and the Black Power struggle. But look at us now. Our children, as the brother said earlier, don't respect what we say because they see the contradictions in what we do.
All right.
And what bigger contradiction is there than to say the white man put me in slavery, than to say the white man locked up your father, than to say the white man won't give your mother a job, than to say the white man shot your cousin dead down on the street. And then after you say that, order them to go to school and be taught by the same people who put their family members in the situation that they are in. As a psychologist and an educator, I cannot condone high school dropout. But as a thinking man, I understand it. Because a child's heart, the spirit, the soul is untainted with hypocrisy. So a child can't force himself to do something when he knows it's not in his best interest. So the reason the black boy drops out of school isn't because he don't want an education. He drops out because he understands the difference between education and miseducation. The fault is not the child who doesn't go to school. The fault is on each one of us, members of his community, who refuse to take some of their disposable income and build for him him the school he deserves. You can take the slave out of slavery whenever you feel like it, but only the slave can take the slave out of himself. True emancipation is a self-affecting thing. It don't come from the outside. And the one thing you must know about all psychological conditioning is that even when the conditioner is no longer present, the conditioned will continue to behave that same way until they are reconditioned. See, don't confuse free-born people with free people. Free-born people don't know what it means to be controlled by another folk because they never had that. Freed people understand what oppression is, and they are so fearful of ever experiencing it again that they do whatever they can to please the oppressor so they never have to go through it anymore. White supremacy controls black people through fear. Why doesn't President Obama speak to the issues of black people? He's scared. Why doesn't Al Sharpton and Jesse speak to the experiences of black people? They scared. Why don't your black elected officials and pastors speak to the needs of black people?
Because they scared.
Because of anxiety and terror and apprehensive expectation. It is through the mechanism of intimidation that white supremacy prevents your liberation. Dr. King said that if a man or woman ain't got a reason for which they willing to die, they ain't fit to live. He said the only way I can come before you is if I love freedom more than my life. I must love equality more than my children. I must love justice more than breath.
Amen.
And if I love my breath more than your freedom, I'm a sellout waiting to happen. Brothers and sisters, the discussion over the miseducation of black children is almost one that is extinct. And why? Because public education has already been approved for removal. All across America, they're shutting down public school districts. In my native Philadelphia, 60 schools will be closed by the new year. Chicago, where I speak often, half their schools will be closed by the following school year. Los Angeles, Texas, Baltimore, New York, probably down here, schools are being shut every day. Why are they shutting down public schools? Well, let's look at the history. Why was public education even started? To educate your child? Hell no. To send him to college? Hell no. But to teach him his place in society.
That's right.
And for a while, his place from 1619 to 2013 was as a low-wage earner. But now they have the Latino and the Mexican. Now they have the Asian and the East Indian who are willing to do the work originally earmarked for the black for less than minimum wage.
All right.
That's what the whole immigration bill is about, brothers and sisters. And the sickness of black people is that we are the only people on earth who actually believes in integration. Nobody else believes in it. Chinese people don't come to America to practice integration. They come to America to practice selfish-ass economics. East Indians don't come to America to practice integration. They come to practice selfish-ass economics. responsibility to look out for your own family before you go looking out for someone else's. But because the Negro was conditioned to love everything else before himself, he naturally fights for the homosexual and the illegal immigrant. He naturally fights for the Jew and for the Protestant before his own kids. How could you come and feed my child while yours goes hungry? But black people do it all the time. And now we have black people fighting for the rights of immigrants. Do you know why they fighting to come to America? They want to come to Mobile to take your job, not live next door to you. They want to come to Mobile so their child can get your child's scholarship. They want to come to Mobile to buy your house and put you on the street. They not coming to share, they coming to dominate. So when I see Negroes running around fighting for immigrant rights, that's someone who hates himself. For why would you put your mother on the street so an immigrant can come and sleep in her bed? And that's exactly what we're doing. Let's go back. When slavery ended, one of the first acts of Congress was to begin to eradicate the economic dependence that American society had on black labor. Slavery rested on the backs of blacks. After slavery, they said this can never happen again because it puts too much economic power on the lap of black people. So they said we got to do something about it. And that's why the unions were started, to keep blacks from getting jobs. And when you study Reconstruction in 1890, what happened in 1890? They brought in millions of people of color from other countries to come and work. Were they necessary? You had 4 million ex-slaves who couldn't find work, who were being locked up for vagrancy crimes. So why are you bringing in East Indians and Chinese when you got ex-slaves who looking for work? Because you don't want the America, it gives them too much power. So you said we're going to lay off the black and hire the illegal immigrant. Because after all, if the illegal immigrant don't do what we tell them to do, we can send them back home. But because the African is more American than any American here, if he chooses not to do the work, what the hell can we do? So they want to replace us with them. And the problem is some of us don't even recognize it, are fighting for their right to come and undo black people. So public school was started to make sure you can do your job. But because there's no job for you to do, there's no longer a need for the school. The only institution being built for black people now is mass incarceration, the prison. In fact, the interesting thing about miseducation and mass incarceration is that the same states who say they can't afford to keep the schools open are building brand new state-of-the-art jail facilities. At the same time, you say you $1 million short to keep the high school open, but you putting up $5 million for a jail. And brothers and sisters, I can tell you as someone who speaks in prisons on a regular basis, voluntarily, some of these prisons are 50 times better, not only than the schools that our kids go to school, but the damn homes they live in. These prisons are state-of-the-art. The residential areas, state-of-the-art. The athletic facilities, state-of-the-art. In fact, they look so much better than the school that you would rather have the children come to the jail to get the education than learn it where they are. In fact, let's just be honest and call it what it is. The school is nothing more than a waiting room for the prison. And if the school is the new jail, that means the teacher is the new police officer. And if the teacher is the new police officer, your child is more likely to get arrested than to get an education. As I was told by a prominent lawyer and a judge, the number one referral source for new juvenile offenders is not the gangs, it's not the drug cliques, it's not the weed circle. Public schools are sending more black boys to jail than the police on the street. As one young man told me, Dr. Umar, I don't go to school because going to school I can get arrested, so I choose not to go, so I stay out of jail. And how did that happen? They started letting street cops come into the public school. And when you let street cops come into the public school, you're now giving them jurisdiction over certain types of offenses that was normally handled by the principal.
That's right.
So now when two brothers get into a fight, before that was a 3-day suspension. You come back to school, life goes on. But now you have a street cop in the school. He takes jurisdiction away from the principal. And instead of going home for 3-day suspension, you go to juvie hall for 6 months. This is what they're doing. I mean, let's be real. White people are lobbying Congress for jails to be built in their neighborhood because black men going to jail is an economic stimulus package to white people. White folks are begging you to commit crime so they can get what? A job with benefits, retirement, and holidays. And you know what's so sad about incarceration? You got 1,000 brothers from Mobile, Alabama at a county jail somewhere that's not in Mobile. When the census gets counted, those 1,000 brothers don't get counted as residents of Mobile where they come from. They get counted as residents of the county where they're incarcerated. So the monies that should have went to their family go to white people who don't give a damn about them because that's where they sleep at night. This is what's going on. And now, Correction Corporation of America, Texas-based firm, the largest private prison industry in the world for that matter, is saying to the government that we'll build the prisons, but you got to guarantee us 100% occupancy at all times. Let me tell you how this looks. In Pennsylvania, we have a mandatory graduation exam law that's about to kick in 2015. Does Alabama have a mandatory graduation test yet in order to get a diploma?
Yes.
Y'all have it. Do y'all know that the tests were created for the purpose of mass incarceration? That's the purpose of the test. They created the graduation exam to prevent blacks from getting degrees so they couldn't get work, and when you can't get work, you commit crime to take care of your family. That's not a black thing. The Italians did it, the Jews did it, the Irish did it. Last time I checked, Bugsy Siegel, Meyer Lansky, Al Capone, Lucky Luciano, not one of them was black. But they all broke the law. They all committed crime because it wasn't until 1940 that the United States government decided that all these Southern European immigrants would be considered white people. Until 1940, they were not white. They were guinea people. And as guineas, they couldn't get jobs. As guineas, they were beat up by cops. As guineas, they shot and killed each other in the street, sold dope, sold liquor, did the same things we did. But nobody said it was because they was born that way.